The oldest city in Western Europe, 14-kilometer wide river, houses with more colors than a box of Legos, 15,000 people eating on a 5-kilometer long table. Do I have your attention now? Good. Lisbon is situated at the mouth of the Tagus River and on the Atlantic Ocean. The population of Lisbon is just about 500,000, but the urban area is home to almost 3 million people. The west part of Lisbon is occupied by the Monsanto Forest Park, a 10 square kilometer urban park which is one of the largest in Europe. Although it might seem like the city is divided in two by the Tagus River, what lies south of the river is not part of the municipality. Two bridges connect the city with the south side. Let me see if I can say this right. Ponte 25 de Abril. Ponte 25 de Abril. And Vasco da Gama Bridge. The length of Vasco da Gama is 17 kilometers, which means it's the second longest in Europe and number 1 in the EU. Tagus River is the largest river in the Iberian Peninsula, and it was precisely the estuary of the Tagus River that the Portuguese explorers sailed from to discover the world. Today it's still part of a very strategic sea route and serves as a busy port handling much of the trade between Portugal and Spain. Lisbon is built in the form of terraces up the slopes of 7 hills that rise from the banks of the Tagus River. The highest of them is São Jorge Hill, on which stands the São Jorge Castle. Apart from its hills, Lisbon is very close to several mountains. First you have Sintra Mountains, with its highest peak sitting at 529 meters. These mountains are less than an hour drive from the city center. They have extremely diverse flora and fauna. And since actually their slopes are mostly oriented to the west, they make it the perfect place to enjoy hiking and climbing by looking over the beach. 50 kilometers north you have an even higher mountain, Serra de Monte Junto. There is even a cave there which is also home to more than several thousand bats. I know, bats, right? I thought that today we're gonna be talking only about beaches and nice weather. Anyway, moving on to Lisbon's climate. Yes, it is true you get 10 months of awesome weather, but during winter it might get pretty cold. That's because most of the houses in Lisbon don't have central heating system. So it's very common that during winter outside will be warmer than inside. So be careful, especially if you rent one of those older houses. Lisbon has 24 legal zones, but generally speaking there are more or less 9 distinguishable neighborhoods. These include Alcatera. The riverfront of Alcatera is known for its nightclubs and bars. This has always been the main place for nightlife, sometimes referred to as docas. Because of its central location and river views, some areas in Alcatera recently began to attract new residential developments. Alfama. This is the oldest district of Lisbon. It spreads down the southern slope from the castle of São Jorge to the river Tagus. Historically, the Alfama became inhabited by fishermen and the poor, and its fame as a poor neighborhood continues to this day. The Mauveraria, or the Moorish Quarter, is one of the most traditional neighborhoods of Lisbon. It derives its name from the fact that after the reconquest of Lisbon, the Muslims who remained were confined to this part of the city. Bairro Alto, which literally means the upper quarter in Portuguese, is an area of central Lisbon that functions as a residential, shopping and entertainment district. It is the center of the Portuguese capital's nightlife. Baisha. The heart of the city is the Baisha, or city center. The Pombaline Baisha is an elegant district mainly constructed after the 1755 Lisbon earthquake. Beato. The manufacturing areas and the industrial facilities of Beato are the place for choice for contemporary art galleries, iconic bars, and gourmet restaurants that simmer on the streets. Belem. Belem is famous as the place from which many of the great Portuguese explorers set off on their voyages of discovery. It is the place from which Vasco da Gama departed for India in 1497 and Pedro Álvares Cabral departed for Brazil in 1499. Chiado. The place for traditional shopping and modern commercial establishments, buying books and having a cup of coffee. Parque das Nações. The newest district of Lisbon has become another commercial and higher-end residential area for the city. Speaking of higher-end, let's jump to... When I do my research for any city, I try to go through as many sources of information as possible. One of the websites I really like to use is Numbeo. I think they give pretty accurate and consistent information. So anyway, according to Numbeo, Lisbon is 40th in Europe in terms of quality of life. But hold on before you get discouraged about this. Lisbon is actually ranked higher than cities like Madrid, Barcelona, Dublin, and Manchester. The city ranks particularly high in terms of clean environment and safety, and it occupies place number 1 in terms of climate. Here you will get 9 to 10 months of excellent weather, and the summers are much more bearable than, say, south of Spain, where you get roasted in August. Of course, the city has plenty of beaches, and they're very suitable for surfing because you don't just dip your toes in your average sea but the Atlantic Ocean. Lisbon is big enough to give you all the advantages of the big city, yet small enough to have a great sense of community. You don't need a car to get to most places, and fairly often you'll bump into people who you know by accident. Lisbon is the city to be if you enjoy having fresh seafood. Organic fruits and vegetables are very common, and there are tons of traditional markets happening on a weekly basis. Here is where knowing some Portuguese will come in handy. Unfortunately, jobs here don't pay so well. If you earn more than 1,000 euros per month for a skilled job, you might consider yourself lucky. If you rent one bedroom flat outside of the city center, your total expenses per month will be slightly above 1,000 euros. So in case you don't have much savings, you might want to consider sharing a flat. It seems like it's getting harder and harder to find a suitable place to rent in the city center. That's because tourism is so huge here, and the locals prefer to rent out their flats as a short-term Airbnbs rather than advertise them on the local market for long-term leases. It's just more profitable for them this way, and who can blame them? So make sure you are ready both financially and mentally for a long journey of looking for a flat. Of course, you have certain industries like IT where you get paid a little bit more but still don't have your hopes too high. Working in a call center or as an English teacher is a very popular option among the foreigners, but still the city has the greatest concentration of services due to being the most economically developed and tourist-driven part of the country. So if you have your eyes on Portugal, chances are Lisbon is your best shot. In 2018, the Eurohealth Consumer Index ranked Portuguese healthcare system as the 13th best in Europe, thus beating countries like UK, Spain, and Italy. Some of the cons about living in Lisbon I must mention tend to be related to overcrowding. The city lacks pedestrian zones as cars can literally pass everywhere. Quite often it will be hard for you to relax while walking on the streets, especially if you're in the historic city center, where the streets tend to be quite narrow. Public transport also has many issues as buses are often late, and it's quite common to have strikes in public transportation. They even have a website where you can check about any strikes that day and where they're happening, and I'm not even joking. Yeah, and get ready for waiting in big queues. To be completely fair though, most of those issues are happening because of the extraordinary number of tourists Lisbon gets every year, so what can you do? My advice to you will be try to find a place that is close to grocery shops, as this way one of your more annoying duties during the week will be less unpleasant. Now, let's talk about the people here. Portuguese are very friendly, relaxed, and tolerant people. If you specifically value the sense of community, you would love the Portuguese and their down-to-earth attitude. From what I've read, Portuguese can also be a bit quiet, which would make them seem closer to people from Northern Europe than Italians or Spaniards. I don't mean to offend anyone here, it's just a generally accepted stereotype Finland. Portuguese people love to eat outside at lunch and dinner time, and there are plenty of restaurants to choose from. Staying out until midnight is quite common, and that goes for children as well. The urban area of Lisbon has a population of nearly 2.7 million inhabitants, thus being the 11th largest urban area in the European Union. According to data from 2019, the largest group of foreign residents are the Brazilians, with around 17,000 of them living in the city. Next in line are approximately 10,000 Chinese, 9,000 Nepalese, and 7,000 French and 7,000 Italians. I struggled to find something more specific in terms of how many people in Lisbon can actually speak English, but because the city is such an important tourist destination, English is widely spoken, especially among the young generation. If you come from any country outside of the EU, prepare for some infuriating bureaucracy. Sometimes it will be quite hard to find just basic information or information on how to go through things. Sometimes you'll be given incomplete or false information, but I promise you, this is one of the very few frustrating things about living in Lisbon. It might be a good idea to meet with a local lawyer or an accountant depending on your situation. Spending some money to organize your life in Lisbon will be worth it for sure. Now moving on. In Lisbon, you can easily sit in a cafe for hours and just drink coffee and eat cakes. And the coffee here has an excellent reputation for its high quality. The city's architectural scene is represented mainly by Romanesque, Gothic and Baroque buildings. Lisbon was never as industrialized as other major cities in Western Europe, giving that kind of romanticized, old Europe kind of vibe. The city is crossed by historical boulevards and monuments such as the Avenida de Liberdad, Avenida Fontes Pereira de Melo, Avenida Almirante Reis, and Avenida de República. Apologies to the locals if I don't pronounce some of the names correctly, I really try my best. The National Museum of Ancient Art has one of the largest art collections in the world, and the National Coach Museum has the world's largest collection of royal coaches and carriages. Logically, these are the two most visited museums in the city. They even have a water museum and an electricity museum. I've never been to one of those yet. The monument to Christ the King, Cristo Rey, stands on the southern bank of the Tagus River. With open arms overlooking the whole city, it resembles the Corcovado monument in Rio de Janeiro and was built after the World War II as a memorial of thanksgiving for Portugal's being spared the horrors and the destruction of the war. 13th of June is Lisbon's holiday in honor of the city's saint, Santo Antonio, not to be mistaken by Lisbon's patron saint, Saint Vincent of Zaragoza, whose remains are housed in the Sé Cathedral. Lisbon has two sites listed by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site: Belem Tower, that served as a point of embarkation and disembarkation for Portuguese explorers, and Jerónimos Monastery. In addition, the Portuguese mosaic pavement, Calçada Portuguesa, was born in Lisbon in the mid-1800s. The art has since spread to the rest of the Portuguese-speaking world. Nearly all walkways and even many streets in Lisbon are being created and maintained in this style. Some cities are divided by language, faith, or politics. Lisbon, however, is split down the middle by citizens' unbreakable devotion to either Benfica or Sporting. In conclusion, in this city where even the desserts are historic, you can easily overdose on the arts. The coffee and the sun will be your best friends, guiding you and being there for you every step of the way.